Welcome on board of this course. Great to have you here. We just wanted to take the chance to introduce ourselves and to give you a quick overview of what you can expect from this course. This course is about Git and GitHub, and the course is taught by myself, Manuel Lorenz, and by Maximilian Schwarzmüller. With our company Academind, we created more than 40 online courses so far. Most of these courses are related to web development, and in these courses we taught more than 1.5 million students all around the world how to code. So it's awesome to also have you in our community now.
Indeed, and with that also hello from my side. I'm Max and I worked on this course together with Manuel. As you said, we built this huge community with all those students and we're super excited to have you on board of this course to dive into Git and GitHub together with you.
We created this course as Git and GitHub are tools everybody working in the world of development or web development, but also in areas like data science or data analysis has to and should know about. Git is a version management tool which helps you to keep track of changes made in your project or in your code without losing any prior progress. GitHub brings Git's capabilities to the cloud and makes it incredibly easy to collaborate on projects with other people or to even manage projects in the cloud. The first steps with these tools can be a bit cumbersome though, so this practical guide takes away all these difficult steps from you. It was built in an interactive and easy to follow way so that you can enjoy the benefits of Git and GitHub. At the end of this course, you will understand how Git and GitHub work, how you can leverage the power of these two tools, and how you can use these tools in your daily work. No matter if you're working alone on a project or if you want to collaborate on a larger project inside your organization. But enough of the words now. Let's get started with the course and let's get started with the most important question first. What exactly are Git and GitHub now? Let's dive right into the course and let's start with, well, probably the most important question. What are Git and GitHub actually? We should get started with Git first. And to do that, we'll first have a look at the official Git website. This is the official Git website, git-scm.com. We'll have a closer look at this website again throughout this course. And what we can find right here is that Git is a free and open source distributed version control system designed to handle everything from small to very large projects with speed and efficiency. The important and probably not too helpful part here is this version control system part. This is what Git is all about. It's about managing different versions of code with the focus of this course, or basically any kind of document, any kind of project in the end. So this means we have to understand this version control, this version management part to understand what Git actually is. To better understand what version management or version control is, we prepared an example hopefully everybody can relate to. Because probably all of you, or the majority of you, had to write an essay or a paper throughout his lifetime. When writing something like this, you typically use any kind of text file type, so a text file, a doc file, anything like this, which allows you to, well, write this text and to save your progress. Now, saving progress whilst writing a paper is very important because you might write things, paragraphs you don't need anymore, so you delete these at a certain point, but then you see, oh, actually this was great, I want to bring it back. Or you also want to make sure that in case anything goes wrong with the file you're currently working in, that you have a backup file which you can jump back to. So what probably lots of you did, you used the, as we call it here, the multiple files approach. This simply means you start writing your essay, you saved it as the first draft, you created a copy of that file, continued writing, and then had your second draft, you created another copy, created your third draft, another draft, and so on until you arrived at the final version of your essay, of your paper. Whilst this is not a bad thing in general, it means, well, kind of lots of files in the end, which are stored in your folder. And additionally, it's also a bit cumbersome to always create these side copies. It's not the most efficient approach in the end. Besides that, not too important here when it comes to simple text files, but when thinking about that logic in the code world, where we write code for websites, for example, which also follows the same pattern. So you start your code, you have a first draft, then you add features in the second draft, in the third draft. You have different versions of your code in the end. And always creating such side copies in the web development world, well, this would hardly be possible. Use lots of space, lots of memory, and again, be very inefficient. Therefore, you could also use another approach. You could say, well, I only need a single file, I only need my latest code to again have the relation to the web development focus of this course. Then you say, okay, I have my final text version, my final code version. This is nice, but what if you want to jump back to an earlier version, or if the final version has a big bug or a big problem, or the text file, for example, is simply broken? Well, then you have a problem because these prior versions are no longer available. Therefore, single file approach, though it is, well, more convenient and does consume less memory, less space, also not the best way to go. This is where version management comes into play. Because version management allows you to do, well, basically this. You simply have one single file, or again, one code base, the latest code base, for example, that you wrote, and that's it. But in contrast to the single file approach, with version management, you don't lose any prior versions of your code, of your paper, or whatever you want to use when it comes to version management. You can always jump back to the third draft you had, or the first draft even. And only this specific version will be available on your machine then. This is a highly efficient approach to manage versions, and it also doesn't consume lots of space on your machine. We'll of course find out throughout this course how this is possible. So this is version management, and what does this have to do with Git now? Well, Git is all about control and tracking of code changes over time. Code changes here with the asterisk because, I mention this once again, the focus of this course is web development, but Git can be used for basically everything, so you can also write papers or essays and manage different versions of it with Git. Course focus is web dev though. Now, this is what Git is all about. It's about the control and tracking of these changes, and therefore it's a highly efficient version management tool which is used by, well, the majority of developers nowadays. So let's summarize Git then. Git is a version control system. It's, by the way, a free and local tool, so a tool you download to your machine and install it there. It allows you to manage your code history very efficient, and it also tracks code changes. This means you don't only have all the different versions of your code, you can also compare versions and see what changed over time. So this is Git, but Git has one or two big disadvantages. As I said, Git is a local tool. It's installed on your machine, and therefore only you can use it as the user of this computer. Besides that, the code you have managed in Git can only be accessed from that computer and not from anywhere else. This means if you're not on your computer and you want to work on a project, but you are, well, somewhere else in the world, then you have a bit of a problem. Besides the fact that if you lose a computer or if it crashes, that the code is lost, but that's another topic. So Git is maybe just one part of the solution we need to manage our web development projects as efficient as possible. This is where GitHub comes into play. What is GitHub now? Well, as we did it for Git, let's also first check the official website to see if we can find more about it there. This is the official GitHub website, github.com. We'll also explore this website in a bit more detail throughout this course. Now, GitHub is obviously where the world builds software. We see that millions of developers and companies build, ship, and maintain their software on GitHub. So it's the largest and most advanced development platform in the world. So GitHub seems to have a high focus onto developers. But what does this mean in detail now? We learned that GitHub is the largest development platform and that many developers are using it for their projects. And why are developers doing this? Well, because GitHub is a cloud hosting and collaboration provider specifically made for developers and therefore also for web developers. It's a cloud hosting provider. This means it's a service which allows you to store your data not in the local environment, but in the cloud. It is for free for basic use cases and also the use cases we have here throughout this course. There are paid options mainly required for companies and really bigger companies to, be able to efficiently manage their projects. But for the purpose of this course and to get started, GitHub is also for free. And it also is a collaboration provider. This means whilst Git is a local tool, GitHub, with the code being available in the cloud, also allows us to collaborate on our projects with other people. And this is very important because if you think about big companies like Facebook, for example, or also smaller companies where 2, 3, 4, 5, or 10 developers work together on the same project, these developers, or we as developers, need access to this code to work on their specific parts of a website, for example. And this is what GitHub does in the end. GitHub is a Git repository hosting provider, to be even more precise here. A Git repository is basically a Git managed project in simple terms. So with that capabilities, so these local capabilities of Git with managing that code efficiently, with managing the history and also with tracking changes, and the capabilities of GitHub with being able to host the code on a cloud service and to enable that great collaboration capabilities, this is how Git and GitHub are connected. It's very important to understand though that GitHub and Git are not generally related. This relation only evolved because, GitHub is the perfect addition to Git, and turns out that many people using Git are also using GitHub. Therefore, this is why Git and GitHub sometimes are assumed to be, kind of one thing. But these are two different tools, two different services, perfectly working and perfectly used together by millions of developers in the world. So this is what Git and GitHub are in a nutshell. Now we want to dive deeper here, of course, and see how we can use these tools. Before we do that though, let's have a look at what this course offers and what we will learn throughout this course.